loud. All right. Due to the governor's statewide disaster declaration relating to the COVID-19 pandemic and current public health guidelines for social distancing, I have determined that it is not prudent for the members of the Economic Development Commission or staff to convene in person for this morning's meeting. Therefore, the members of the EDC are attending this meeting by video conference. Those same conditions require barring access to the public for in-person attendance. In light of those limitations, the public is invited to attend and listen to the meeting through Zoom platform or by phone, as indicated on the meeting agenda. To comply with the Open Meetings Act requirements for virtual meetings, this morning's meeting will be and is being recorded. Okay. Can I get a roll call for us?
Yeah, Mike Elliott.
I'm here.
Jay.
Here.
Nina.
I'm here.
Erwin and Roger.
Here.
Okay.
We're here. Not bad. All right, now I gotta find the share screen thing, which is all right, where's Denise, help me out. Where's the button that lets me have everybody looking at the same thing I am on my browser?
So you already clicked the green button. It's up there. Then down on the right-hand side, right-hand corner, bottom, it'll say share.
No.
So you've already clicked the green share button. And then
Share
you pick,
button.
so down at the bottom, you click the green share button, share
Oh,
screen.
got it.
Okay, there you go.
There we are.
Nice.
There are a bunch of things on the agenda, but at least two people I know have to leave for meetings, so I'd like to get started on this. I don't think we'll really finish this, but you know, we talk a lot about the kind of things that we can attract, and we've been doing it kind of in a vacuum, in the sense that when we go back and look at the plans, we find that some of the things that seem like they might be worthwhile are things that the plan really doesn't comprehend or contemplate us having. So this is just one example. This is Midlothian Road, and they're talking about, let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Is that a little more legible for those on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at the north part of Long Grove, way up by the traffic court. And we've got these spaces that we have never talked about, that I can recall, where we've got some properties and we've got some uses that are not the kind of things that we've been talking about. They're talking about commercial property, and that's A, and they're talking about professional offices or research, which is C. The area has anybody gone by here recently to see what the current state of development is? I know the area on the northeast side of Route 60 has been developed by people trying to grab the Diamond Lake address. And there's some very old commercial structures along there, but it's an area where there's some substantial parcels that the village says should be professional offices. And I guess that's not it's not a bad corner as things filled in or fill in further north. I was struck by, we drove up to Lake Geneva yesterday or Sunday. And so we went up Gilmer Road and Fairfield Road and through the Volo area. And I hadn't been for a while. And I was amazed at the relatively small single-family residences and townhomes that had been built all along the highways up there. So that the area north of Long Grove is a lot more developed than it was before. And maybe we should be thinking more about looking for people who want to put up a remote office space in an area like this and do a little focus on that area. Any thoughts? Any?
Yeah, Roger, I happened to go to Lake Geneva last week, similar route, and I happened to see all the development, both commercial and primarily residential. So is this space you're talking about where the arrow is? Is that what?
I'm talking about what's
the whole-
on my line, kind of a pinkish red that's labeled C and C, and in the middle C. And the idea in the comprehensive plan is that those would be professional offices. I imagine that's because they're next to some single family residences. But in terms of what we've heard about the possibility that people will be looking for developing spaces for folks who don't go into the office every day, or folks who have left the downtown area or will leave the downtown area, this might be something that.
So is there anything, is that vacant land there, or did you say there's some industrial built, old industrial built?
Right now,
Because I haven't focused on that area at all. I think you're correct in your statement previously.
right now it's vacant land, I believe.
Okay.
There's a little bit of single story buildings with big garage doors here in the A area.
And is it the vacant land up for sale? Do you know? Does anyone know?
I have no idea who the owner is or who's developing it, or, and that's kind of what I was thinking in terms of looking at these and saying, maybe we can spend some time seeing what these people want,
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
You hear people less than happy about the fact that it seems like all we do is the downtown stores.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
we're not that there's anything wrong with that, obviously, but to the extent that the village is more than just the downtown merchants, something to consider.
Hey, Roger, it's Mina. So I don't know how realistic that would be in light of everything that had happened recently with the pandemic for us to, for people to be having more office spaces and especially in our community. I think an entire area dedicated for all that C just seems unrealistic to me, just based on trends. So I don't know if that is quite realistic, just in my opinion, for that thought. And I haven't driven past that area in a really long time either.
Yeah. Putting aside the village's concepts, Mina, what would be possible development of that property?
I considering so at the tip of the corner where it's not Long Grove, where that's Mundelein, what is it, Big Meadows? I mean, that's all commercial, right? And there's a lot of activity that goes through there. Because that's where there's like a Walgreens and a car wash and an Aldi and a couple other things, right? And then, so I've only seen, because I've only seen residential back there. I did not realize that. I just don't. I mean, it is well traveled. I mean, for me personally, I would think a little bit more I hate to say smaller, more. I mean, commercials is not even, commercial would be better, but I don't know if it's realistic either. Because again, these retail stores, unless we're talking smaller, cuter little, I mean, areas like that where there's already so much, residential, and especially because you're surrounded by Mundelein where it's a lot more dense living. I mean, I would think that's where it'd be perfect to have a mixed use with, again, not super high density like Mundelein, but with retail, smaller retail, plus a little bit more, low density residential, I think would be, especially because you're surrounded by, look at all the homes and the residents. Like, again, if you cross the street into Mundelein, that's all. I mean, look at the density there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I think it's a nice blend to do a mixed use in that region.
Yeah, I agree
just
with
in my
that.
opinion.
I agree with that, Mina. I think that's right on. Yeah.
Yeah.
But along growth style development, they're saying single family residence.
No, exactly. But I'm saying in the C areas, you know, when you've got in the C areas, if you made that mixed use kind of like a Melody Farms type of approach, I think that's a much better approach than hey, let's make this office space. Like, why?
No,
I just don't see that being a reality.
Yeah, I agree with that, Mina. I think that's right on, you know, because office, you know, from all the materials that you had circulated, Roger, you know, it just doesn't seem like that's a property type that's going to be, you know, going to be useful to expand at this point.
And just from, I mean, and again, this is a comprehensive plan that's already passed, but, you know, in light of recent years, I mean, I think, again, it's, I mean, not that there's much we can do about it, but again, I think it's great that we're reevaluating, but in light of the recent pandemic, I think for a community of our size, that just seems, I don't know, it's larger communities like Chicago are having difficulty, let alone our tiny little 8,000 population Long Grove, so for office. So I just, especially now that we've got the reserve, you know what I mean? Like that looks like a good prime office. So I just don't know how realistic, because this area isn't just this part of, again, Mundelein isn't, you know, like there's like a family video right next to the McDonald's that's closed down. There's like a couple of vacant spaces in Mundelein too, just right in that little pocket. So directly to the west of like the 60 and Midlothian intersection. So I just feel like it's kind of like commercial again has done better, you know, but I just don't know if office would do well. It just because it's tucked in and you can't really see it, or again, I mean, just my own opinion. So
what's the current occupancy of the reserve?
You know, I don't know. I forgot what they had said. But it's quite large. I mean, just the structure when we walked through it. I mean,
but in regards to occupancy.
No, I don't know. I don't know. We could probably, I don't know.
Is there any occupancy?
Does anyone know?
Right
now
know.
it's empty.
Yeah.
I think right now they're still renovating. As far as I heard, I didn't think they were supposed to do something by summer. I think they were trying to have some sort of a spec space available for viewing. But when we walked through it, 3 months ago, I think, it was still in, you know, disarray. They were still doing tear down of all of the existing guts, right?
So you know, I'm not familiar with this area. Would it make sense, that we could do a drone over that area for all of us to gain some knowledge, or someone go and take some pictures of that area and find out if there are for sale signs in that area and maybe report back, so we can get a better idea of what's there.
That's just having one of us, or, you know, take a drive if you got some time. And
wait, why don't you guys use Google Earth? Just use Google Earth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Google Earth would be able to show. I mean, it won't be like right now, but I mean, I'm sure not much has changed. Yeah.
So maybe this is an area that we should look at a little bit more in terms of what the plan says and what's possible. As it sits right now, it looks to me like these pinkish areas are essentially locked up by the village. The people who own them, if they're stuck with those uses, aren't going to be doing anything with them. And the tax they'll generate to pay for the schools or the fire protection district or whatever are very minimal. And that's, in my mind, that's in the back of all this. You know, it'd be nice to get sales taxes, but it'd also be nice to make lands, if it's appropriate, pay real estate taxes to the schools. So next area. This one to me is interesting. This is
Roger, what are you looking at?
this
The
is
C still?
Old McHenry Road and Route 22. This is where
Your screen, wait, I think your screen still shows the Midlothian. Do you need to reshare a different?
I've got Old McHenry Road and 22.
reshare.
I don't know. I don't know. Do you have to reshare that? I can't remember, but you might have to reshare or unscreen this one and then share. There you go. There you go. You got it.
You're right. You have to reshare. So Old McHenry Road and Route 22. This is where Brian was talking about this northeast corner being a nice place for a gas station, which on some levels it would be. It certainly is a busy corner. But you know, there's the former bank Dunkin' Donut, Long Grove Commons, which has been struggling now for a number of years. And there's the parcel to the northwest that's kind of shaded gray.
Mhm.
That's all wetlands. That was purchased by the village some time ago and just held as wetlands with the idea that they'd allow the perimeter to be developed with commercial properties. And for whatever reason, the commercials haven't seemed to catch fire. But here we're saying that we've got possible single family residence and then some wetland type parcels. Anybody thoughts about where this might go?
I think that's all going to depend on when 22 goes through and it widens up. Because right now 22 is a logjam from a development perspective, being single lane each way, considering how large, I mean, there's always traffic in that area. So I think that is an impediment to any development in that area until that actually happens, which is supposed to happen. I think it's scheduled, what, in the next 2 years?
Yeah.
And the actual engineering has been being done. I should say actual buildable prints, I think, for the expansion of 22 from there all the way west.
I found it interesting.
So I think that one's just going to be, yeah, I think that one's just until, you know, until that actually widens.
If you go just a little bit further northwest, which I can't from this, Killdeer, which cuts in, I guess it's Killdeer, has rezoned and is putting in townhomes along Old McHenry
Yeah,
Road.
they're beautiful.
Yeah.
All the single family kind of first floor master. Yeah, they're super cute, and it's a little bit tighter density. Yeah, but it's still, I mean, it looks nice. I've driven past it like a couple weeks ago. So it's very nice, classy.
And they seem to be, you know, they're putting money into it, whether they're selling or not, they're putting money into building it out. The developer seems to be optimistic about it.
What is the price point?
400.
To what? 400 at the base? What's the top?
I would guess for base amount, because that's what I know since we drove by the other day and saw the big sign that says starting from 400. So they're talking about what looks like maybe a 3-bedroom, but more likely a 2-bedroom townhome. on a lot that is almost the size of a city lot from what I can see, with some common walls for 400. And you know what that says in terms of, obviously the houses to the north of the parcel we're looking at are typical large lots and long driveways, so that to the extent that somebody ever said, well, we're going to put some townhomes all along here, that would probably get some neighbors upset.
Yeah, require changes to the zoning too.
Huge changes, yeah. Well, for now, you know, Mina makes a really good point, which is that until 22
Right.
is finished, people aren't going to be quite ready to jump in and try to develop this parcel.
But you said some of it, there is vertical construction already? I mean, on the piece, the developer is doing that?
No, right now it's an old day camp that's sitting vacant because they moved across the street.
Jay's Day Camp moved across the street? I didn't know that.
I
I
believe
think
so,
Jay's
yeah.
closed
I
down.
thought they
I think Jay's closed down.
I thought it
No,
closed down.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's the Jewish Apache camp.
JCC Apache camp.
They
Oh, yeah.
retired.
You know, I just want to go back to what I think, I forgot who was, maybe Mina said or Jay about 22 and the expansion. But maybe we need to explore this also. Maybe we need to develop a list of a couple of areas you want to explore, because if we do get a developer in there for whatever use, whether it's residential or there's something else, that it takes years, you know, to go through the process. And maybe we could at least whet someone's appetite on that, find out a little bit more about ownership and goals, and tie that into the, you know, comprehensive plan also. Because if we wait, if we think this is a good spot for development, whatever it may be,
Mhm.
and we wait a couple of years till the widening takes place, it's going to be another 2 or 3 years after that till anything happens. So
Yeah, that's a good point, Erwin, because, you know, maybe we do need to do a little more research into that. Because again, you know, in addition to the widening of the road, you know, then you have to be concerned with infrastructure, you know, adequate sewer and water supplies that would have to be potentially developed there. And you know, if we could do a little research, you know, at this point, I know Lake County is trying to develop a list of areas where infrastructure can be further developed. And so maybe we could tie it into that, you know, so if there was adequate infrastructure to support a more mixed use development, it would be helpful.
So maybe the purpose of this session should be, let's go through the different properties, and then maybe before the end of the meeting, sort of prioritize where we want to drill down to learn more about it. You know, which ones, maybe 3 or 2, to drill down and get some more information, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So moving on to the next one, so we can get through all of them, hopefully. This is the downtown triangle. And a lot of it is the stores and the newly redeveloped triangle. This area in red, A, is something that I hadn't looked at it closely, but if you come into the village and look on the left-hand side through this red, there are 3 or 4 old ranch houses, several of which are in really rough shape and sitting there. And you know, the idea is, according to the comprehensive plan, future mixed use development. So they're thinking commercial or office building, but nothing about what we've been just kind of nibbling around, nothing about saying mid-rise residential or something along those lines.
Roger, it does say cluster single family residential. And there on one of the plans, there was like a joined housing proposal. So I think this is probably the area that most resembles what they're looking for is what you're talking about.
Well, this is, there's a townhome development in Buffalo Grove on the bottom corner of the screen, right across from the B parcel. And I guess that, would make some sense if somebody could get interested in it. But yeah, so far nobody has. And then the other part of it is this A parcel.
Didn't someone look at that for a gas station in the past?
I'm sorry, Jay, what'd you say?
Didn't somebody inquire about a gas station on that parcel in the village in the last 5 years or so? No,
Sounds like
at
nobody's.
the corner,
Sure,
not the other, yeah.
sure. I mean, there are two not very far away. And it seems like the trend is to have less gas stations and bigger gas stations now, but it's,
So the future senior assisted living, that's built out, obviously, correct?
right. So that was in the plan, and the medical center is still there as the medical center. And the relatively small homes in what I think they call it Fairfield Village here
Mhm.
are built out. And this land is sitting empty. I would guess it's sitting empty because a lot of people would like to see stores in there. But from what we're hearing about development of retail stores, I'm not optimistic.
So the use pattern for that area in red is residential currently?
No, the area
What
in
is that?
red is, I'm sorry, the area in red, really? Oh, the area in red is future development opportunity mixed use.
Hmm.
High density, single family residence.
That would actually tie in, isn't that what the request was for the South 15 was high density multifamily residential, those townhome projects, which CB Brian talked about?
That was what Brian had. Yeah, it was.
So is there any follow-up on that scenario about I think it was urban development who was going to relook at an interest before they, isn't that what Brian stated? He was that he'd go back to his customer, which I think urban.
Mhm.
Brian shared the plans with Mina, and that's kind of the last we heard of it. These things don't, happen in short order, but that might still be out in play. And it certainly is something that might make a difference in the downtown area. Let's see if.
Are you speaking about the path that would come through Covered Bridge Park? And if so, that is going to be happening fairly soon?
I think on the actual development, it was a 15 acres abutting Buffalo Grove. This is on 83, isn't the other side of this 83?
Yeah.
Or we...
Just
Oh,
here.
okay.
It's on my screen now. And let's see if I can click the right buttons.
There
on
you go.
Everybody's screen.
He is the piece that Brian from CB Richard Ellis was talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is, it's a big chunk of land. It's high traffic
Mhm.
and it's bounded by, a retirement village or whatever they want to call it, and the shopping area. And then on the back side, there's a church down at the bottom. So it's, it's not exactly all quiet and pristine, but then there are the homeowners along the corner who have been there forever. These are the homeowners who managed to get Arlington Heights Road closed up at Aptekissick so that their road became a dead-end street. So they've been in the past very protective of their single-family residences and would probably push back if somebody said, let's put in something like what Brian proposed. And what he proposed certainly would not be like anything else in Long Grove at this point.
But specifically, he was going to go back to urban development, I think, wasn't he, to see even if the village had interest, if in fact he was going to get some feedback from the developer if they still had an interest, I believe. Am I incorrect?
I thought he was hoping to hear from the village that, yeah, the village might be open to that kind of a plan. And I don't feel like we're really in a position to convey that, but if it gets some people talking about it on the village board, maybe.
Well, I suspect their interest will evaporate if they don't hear. And the other thing, that seems to be, that's never been developed over last ever. I mean, there wasn't even a tear down there, at least
Yeah,
from my recollection, having lived there. That's always been vacant farmland.
yeah.
Has
Whereas the
anyone,
water,
has
Waterford
anyone followed
Point
up with Brian
profession.
to? I'm sorry, has anyone followed up with Brian to see if he went back to that developer to gauge their interest? Because that's been, what, a month ago now, right?
I don't believe so. Mina, I believe, has left the meeting because she had another meeting and she was the contact.
Okay.
Brian. But let's follow through on that. I'll ask her if she is, or if she thinks it'd be better for somebody else to do it, and we'll get back to Brian.
One other thing that came out of the conversation with Brian is it appears there was some feedback, I think, from attorneys that said it's very difficult to deal with Long Grove. And I think we should try to get those attorneys' names to try to tell them that, what the EDC is doing and how things could change in that regard. We want to maybe promote ourselves a little. I just think it's a separate issue. We should follow up on that.
Well, I think that's important as long as the fact set is correct that if they have, I think it's specifically Brian's comments from my recollection was specifically related to their backing out of a contract for sale of that property. And obviously time is of the essence in that situation. If there's some feedback that is positive for the developer, probably it's a good idea for them to know about it. Otherwise, they just displace those funds to a different project somewhere else. Is there an interest for someone to develop? Is there a pathway for that to be acceptable to the residents and the governmental bodies of Long Grove for that urban development by urban or a similar development, which is those vertically constructed row houses? For, I believe it was a rental project, but the net effect's the same. Doesn't it add 150 units or 90? Yeah, 147 units or 164 units.
The downside from what I don't feel this way, the downside is that any kind of residential is going to devalue the Long Grove brand. and or something along those lines. And I never have heard it around here anyway, with people saying, well, that'll bring in dangerous people and crime and blah, 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 the kind of things that you see in the city when they talk about Section 12 or whatever it is, housing. But it still is, problematic in the sense that people's perceptions of residential close to where they live somehow is going to devalue the place that they live in. To me, doing some kind of more intense development in this little tract is a good idea, because the possibility of getting more retail, I think, is very small. I think Brian's right, and the other people we've talked to that have said strip malls are, they're going to be nail spas and barbershops and not a lot, and quick pickup food places with drive-through windows. And to make the parcel help to pay the
Well, the
way.
one thing also we should, Brian from CB Richard Ellis certainly made it clear that that arrow that shows the extension of Route 53 is never going to happen. So probably this map, that the access to that parcel has to come from some other area. That 53 extension, at least from my recollection, was never going to happen.
So that makes it less desirable as a commercial space?
Yes.
Does that make it less desirable as a rental residential space?
I don't think necessarily it would, but I wonder if we could find out more about what Urban's plans were. I mean, what type of residential?
We have a what's called, didn't they tender a site plan?
I saw the site plan when it was sent to me.
I think Brian shared that.
I'll dig it out and send it to everybody so you can all see what Brian had in mind.
Access point was going to be from a right in, right out north of that, where it shows Illinois 53 extension, somewhere north of there, and also coming in off of Robert Parker Coffin.
Yeah. All right.
It does seem like the comp plan, as we talked about, would permit slightly more dense housing if it fit a certain character that didn't conflict with, the broader composition of the town. So that would be something to maybe explore a little bit more. Maybe upper end type townhomes.
If you go to downtown Lake Forest, if you go to downtown Glencoe, virtually anywhere along the North Shore, if you go to downtown Glenview, you'll see 3-4 story apartment buildings all around the town square. I don't think that Lake Forest has had its image tarnished by the fact that they allow people to rent there. It's kind of a natural progression of development as the land fills in. Right.
And as we talked about places, of course, like Lincolnshire, and they've got, I don't think we would ever, contemplate that large of a development that's being built at Aptekissick in Milwaukee. But the village did consider, obviously, the idea that in order to get a younger demographic there, I mean, it was, they did amend their own plans to permit that, with the idea of getting a younger demographic, with the idea of more employment in the area. So, it was a decision that they made, and now that area, of course, it didn't conflict with zoning. So I think that helped, but they did change the idea of allowing that type of multi family housing. It was not permitted before then. And I can look into it further. You know, I don't know if it involved an actual change in zoning or just the idea that the board would expand the type of housing that they would permit, because it was not permitted before then. And that, of course, is a huge rental development. I don't think we would ever, I think it's going to be over, what, probably 150 units now.
This next area that's on the screen is one that there's been a lot of talk about. This is the TIF at the south end of the village at Hicks and Lake Cook, which is Menards is already there, and God bless Menards for supporting the village for the last several years. But the areas to the north of that, some of the things on the west side, I don't think are in the village yet. And yet the village, kind of looking forward, said, well, these are areas that might be developed. But a lot of the stuff down toward Lake Cook Road is very wet wetlands. And a lot of the stuff further north on Lake Cook Road that's marked I, you wouldn't know it this year, but that's normally on near swamp as you drive north. So there are real limits on what can be done there. But this area J, this is an interesting parcel. And D and F, which the comprehensive plan says are going to be single family residences. Given the way they're packed in and given the access down Old Hicks Road, is if they're kept as minimum 2-acre lots, I don't know if that's going anywhere.
Mm-mm.
And then, the other piece, space way up the top, office commercial, across the street from, is it a Korean church that's there? That's either undevelopable or it could be, I don't know what would fill in there that would make good use of the land. Because the entrance and exit off of the highway I was thinking about this when I got a call a couple of months ago from somebody asking about doing industrial in Long Grove, and would the village be interested? And so we got into this discussion about, I don't know, but what do you mean by industrial? And in the developer's language, industrial doesn't mean smokestacks with air scrubbers. I'm not sure exactly what it means, but it means
Warehouse.
Distribution.
Yeah.
And warehouse, I would think, requires access off of something other than Old Hicks Road. You'd have to have some.
But the 53, the terminus of 53 is probably a beneficial issue for getting warehousing.
So they've got that parcel that's sitting there that's part of it's forest preserve, I think, just to the east. But the rest of it is, its potential, I guess, to keep in mind. So there's stuff going on down there. But
So
that,
what happened with that inquiry?
really nothing. I said, you know, if you got something specific in mind, what he was looking at was the driving range on Route 45 going north, just north of Aptekissick, which is another.
You're talking about Aptekissick in 83?
Yeah,
And Valley Bunyan.
yeah. And that's now, from what I understand here. See if I can get it on the map here and get it blown up a little bit. I've got it like this, but I can't get it to do anything. Let's see. Oh, crap. Here we go. This is the area here. You can see where I'm circling my cursor now. Aptekissick and Route 83. Ballybunion is there. And then the other thing that I think is interesting is that a little further north is the greenhouse. And maybe I misheard, but from what I understand, the greenhouse is about to get torn down for violation of the building code, or very close to it. So there's this big tract of land along a very busy highway that's sitting there that's got fairly restrictive use because it's got neighbors with backyards all along the side.
Right.
And they're not going to want anything other than a house just like theirs built there.
And wasn't there restrictions in terms of their PUD restrictions in some of those? Yeah, I seem to recall with Hillcrest and.
That's my memory too. We talked about this once, and
Yeah,
somebody,
Yeah, I think that's correct.
maybe Rita shared with us that that's probably not going to fly because the neighbors have the right to block anything there. But in terms of looking for a place where there would be commercial development, that's, you know, on the other side is the country club, which is not in Long Grove, so we don't care about them, but not, you know, but in the sense that they're not neighbors who are going to raise a fuss. That's a positive toward being able to develop it with something other than building in 3 houses in the 6 acres. But it's it's another possibility. So we've gone through the possibilities that we have, and there aren't a lot.
Well, the next thing is the area which would make sense to finish up would be the downtown area and the contiguous sites to that. Yes.
Yeah.
yeah. We didn't talk about the downtown. Amy, you were saying something about some plans for the downtown.
Oh, that's the pathway that will go, once the covered bridge park is done, then a pathway will continue on beyond the farmhouse behind Buffalo Creek and come out and hit Old McHenry. I thought you guys were still talking about the triangle. I'm packing for a trip as I'm listening.
Yeah, no. So this would be a path that would meet up with the sidewalks in downtown Long Grove?
It would meet up right by like Rivellino, the art studio.
Uh-huh.
Or the art school, I mean. Yeah, so it would come behind, the dance studio, the brewery. It'll be great when it's all done. Very excited about it.
What's the completion date? Is that fun? You got a grant for that?
Right, we're still looking at the start date. Well, as you can see, the covered bridge path, the park is, getting there. There'll be monument kind of things along the way, plaques, sort of markers telling a story. So that's still maybe fall. I haven't really heard anything in a while. But then eventually the path will continue on. I don't know the time frame of when we expect to hit Old McHenry Road at the art school. I will inquire and I will let you guys know.
Any other thoughts on the downtown area? What's on my screen now, hopefully you can see the area in red with the possible development of new construction there. Beyond that, I don't see, well, maybe somebody's going to come along. I heard once that somebody was buying up a lot of the land that was connected with the Disney organization. And their idea was to turn it into a kind of a downtown, old farm town theme park kind of shopping experience. And you read about development. There are a lot of, well, I've read more than one thing that said the future for retail is that it's got to be a unique experience, so that it's not for you to buy something, but it's going in to have this life experience, to take yourself someplace that's very unusual. And
So what happened with that? What is the status of that?
that was pure rumor, and that was years ago. I don't think that really went anywhere, and it's entirely possible that somebody was thinking that Forsyth was Walt Disney or something. I don't know.
It's not a bad plan if somebody could revive it, if somebody has a connection with Disney.
Well, there's the old schoolhouse, and then there's the historical society, and there's been very little link in terms of, come and give your kids an education in what 19th century America was like. And at the same time, you might buy some things in our stores. And there's never been any kind of a tie-in like that with respect to the downtown area, beyond the fact that zoning says that everything has to look like it was built in 1873. Maybe that's an area we could look at other places that have tried to build themselves as historic downtowns or whatever, and find some successful ones.
Mm-hmm.
I could add a little bit to that, and I'm intrigued by that. So I was running the Archer School Ruth Barn program, and we had it was common in the area for the third graders to come to our site.
Yeah.
And then it stopped. The last time Killdeer came through, so my daughter just graduated 8th grade, and she was in 3rd grade when that was the last year that they did it. And I think that they tried to get out of it that year, but they couldn't, my daughter being in 3rd grade, and the mom just took over the program. That wasn't the year that they could ditch us. So that was the last year that Killdeer did it, was when Nick was in 3rd grade. Then we had Mechanics Grove coming for like 2 years, and then they dropped out. So they've all taken it out of their history programs. So we have tried like Boy Scout groups. We've had senior centers come through.
Mm-hmm.
There's the occasional, Angie will get the call. Now Jane is the president of the Historical Society. She'll get the calls going forward. Occasionally we'll get the call from the senior center or a Boy Scout, Girl Scout troop, but we really, from the Historical Society's perspective, we're trying to come up with ideas of how to draw people here. So, let's keep brewing, thinking about this, because we have something here that we really could make awesome and draw people to town. It's just a matter of figuring out where all those niche markets are, how we develop the seniors coming in. We need volunteers to do this. Angie she would even incorporate Village Hall into it on occasion. She'd talk about Drexel Tavern and how it's used, for governmental things. So that's something we could gear to kids in particular. Seniors don't want to hear that. But we've got all these awesome things that we can offer. And, here's where I was going to go with that. Mike Dvorak was trying to get a program going, and the problem was we don't have outhouses. So bathrooms is the issue. There was also where do people eat lunch? That might have been solved with Jesse DeSoto in his tent over in Brothers Field. So we may have that part, and the downtown is working on bathrooms. I mean, not really working on. It is still in our sights. We would love to figure out where that could be. There had been talk about putting something on Brothers Field for a while, but I think that's not going to happen now. So still trying to figure that out. But those are some of our obstacles and where we are on that, some history.
What's inside the schoolhouse now? Are there desks that are?
Yes. Yep. We have desks and benches, or two benches in the back. There's the teacher's desk. We've got a dunce cap, and we've got all sorts of cool little gadgets. The water bucket that would be taken to the pump and filled up, and a switch, and the wood burning stove, and I guess that's probably about it. And the barn is full of all sorts of cool things. We've got an old sleigh. We have all sorts of tools. Yeah, it's a cool little place, and we've got some good presentations that are all in the can on scripts. So we're ready to go when we have people coming to see. We have costumes. So we can bring people in. We've got something to show them.
I'm thinking about just very nearby. Has anybody been to Old World, Wisconsin?
Yes.
We took our kids up there a couple of times, and it was really, I thought, a worthwhile trip. And
I did too. Yep. Or, the neighbor settlement, that would be another example of, they all have more than we have to offer as far as historical buildings wise, but we have something that's totally unique and different. We've got a whole historic, functional, operating downtown that has so much to offer people.
As a reason to come there, if there were a living museum type exhibit, even just Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoons, and people could rely upon it, and I would think that would draw people into downtown. Maybe not the schoolhouse, maybe the farmhouse would be a more logical place to do it, especially with a path going back there and with a nice big parking lot resurfaced this year. To try and build something that would be an experiential type of visit, so that whoever goes in there would be drawn into it by doing things rather than just looking at old stuff.
Right.
That's, that could be, I
There-
think, a draw to redevelop and build traffic for downtown.
Yes. I think we're kind of toying with doing, it keeps coming up, doing like bringing back turn of the century days. And that would be the kind of thing where we would have the farmhouse open. There was one day we had the farmhouse open when, maybe it was when Buffalo Creek opened. Could that be their grand opening day, I think?
Mhm.
And, we had some people come through. But, maybe if we kind of had put up some signs around Buffalo Creek, letting people know that we're doing this. Otherwise, it was just sort of who stumbled upon us or who had seen our Facebook posts kind of thing. I think doing something on a regular basis only works if we up our volunteer base. Which is something we're working on as a historical society. But, you can put the call out. How long have we been calling out for a breakfast place? They have to come,
Yeah.
So, but we would, if we had more volunteers and could staff something, things are changing though. That covered bridge really is getting us noticed. We have more members now than I think ever. In the last 2 years, the membership has increased fabulously. So who knows? Maybe the volunteer base will grow also, and we could do something like that. But we're always available, for any possibility. Sometimes Aaron will do guest spots on tours, going wagon tours. He'll do historical. Oh my gosh, I'm frazzled this morning. I'm trying to get out of here, and I have to drive 7 hours. So yeah, that's we're open for any ideas anybody has.
Well, the idea this morning was just go through everything that we had in the way of developmental areas in the village. And I think we've done that in a real brief sense, and we've all got some ideas going forward. But there are limits as well, given the current real estate market. So any other thoughts? Anybody else want to talk any more
Roger,
about?
maybe I can make a recommendation. I'd like to learn a little bit more about the northern part of the village, how we first started out with, what it looks like. I may take a ride up there and just, what signs are there? Is there land being sold? What's around there? And I could take that on. I'd also recommend that we drill down on that Bailey Bunyan site. And if I'm correct, Dave, our former village manager, said, I think his recommendation was you may want to get the homeowners, the president of the homeowners association, to get their views on that land and use, because that's a pretty big parcel of land. And I know there's been proposals for, I think, 0 lot lines and houses there and some retail. So those would be my number, 1 and 2.
Yeah, those are good suggestions. And maybe throw in, what we talked about on 22 and Old McHenry,
Yes.
the idea
Yes.
of more residential there. What would be required? If we're talking about infrastructure, trying to bring in sewer and water and that type of thing, what in order to attract that development, what are the steps we need to take on that? So that's another thing we can look at.
And then we need a follow-up with Brian, just to find out what's happened to that project, because maybe it's still a little bit warm. We don't know. I think we need to find out. Maybe was it Mina who had the
I'll follow up with Mina. If Mina doesn't do it, I'll do it, and we'll see what Brian can tell us about where, if anywhere, that is going as a possibility.
Well,
Right,
those are
right.
my thoughts, Roger.
Those are good thoughts. Yeah, I'd follow up with Brian to see what Urban's plans were and whether they would, whether that would fit in. Is there any latitude if they change it a little bit, and we could just kind of research that a little bit more too.
Okay.
And then as we were talking about 53 and Lake Cook, what would some sort of like light industrial or warehouse, what are the uses that would work there? I know there's a United parcel facility about half a mile from there.
Big one. Very big one. Yeah. I think this is worth, I'm glad we did this because I think we all have a little bit better sense of what we've got to work with. And we've got some very worthwhile things to follow through on, like the North Parcel and what's up there. And let's see what we can do with that. And we'll follow through with Brian. Jay has left the meeting, yes. And Mike is gone, I believe, yes. And Mina has gone for some time, so we no longer have a quorum. which is and I just as soon wait until the next meeting to talk about the other things that were on the agenda, so we can just kind of roll those over. And I guess the thing is to adjourn the meeting at this point to pick up at the next meeting with wherever we were or weren't. But along those lines, let's consider ourselves adjourned and then.
Well, let me just make one more recommendation following up on what Erwin said. Maybe, for the next meeting, we take this topic up again about the comprehensive plan of chapter 12 and these different areas. Do we need any changes to that, or what do we need to explore to make those areas more desirable to a developer, and even to suggest what uses, what the highest and best uses are in our opinion. So maybe we could just go through that, go through this analysis again.
Yeah.
With the idea of looking again at that comprehensive plan.
Good idea.
Yep.
All right, we're adjourned, but don't go away. I'm stopping the recording just because I want to stop